In the sands of forgotten empires, shadows rise again. Secrets buried for millennia are about to be revealed. Welcome to Historyverse AI. Again, welcome to Historyverse AI. Today, we step into the shadow of a giant so feared that even Moses himself needed divine encouragement not to tremble. His name was Og, king of Bashan, the last of the giants. Og's throne was not just political, it carried the blood of the Rephaim, a race of colossal beings whose origins trace back to the mysteries of Genesis. His very existence was a threat to Israel's destiny. The Hebrew root of his name, Og, meant gigantic. But it was no metaphor. He was a living echo of a forgotten age. When giants roamed the land before the flood, Og was the sovereign of the Amorites, ruling fortified cities east of the Jordan. Yet behind his throne lurked something older, an ancient curse of bloodlines tied to the Nephilim. The Israelites marched toward the promised land, but to reach it, they had to pass through Bashan, the kingdom of Og, a land beautiful yet haunted by a ruler too monstrous to ignore. The Bible describes Og's iron bed, nearly 15 feet long and 6 feet wide. It was not just furniture, it was testimony to a terror that made nations tremble. But Og's story is older than his throne. Ancient Jewish traditions claim he was a survivor of the flood itself, clinging to Noah's ark as waters swallowed the earth. Some legends say Noah fed him through a window in the ark. For centuries he wandered, a cursed relic of a world God had erased. Other traditions claim Og built his own ark from cedar trees, sailing alone across divine judgment, carrying with him the bloodline of giants. By the days of Moses, Og had lived for millennia, witnessing civilizations rise and fall. His presence was unnatural, almost immortal, a living fossil of rebellion. Scripture calls his people Rephaim, a name that also means the dead, survivors of judgment. Walking curses, shadows of a race erased by God yet still walking. Og's dominion was not only military, it was spiritual. Behind his throne lay powers that defied heaven itself, ancient watchers whose offspring polluted the earth. The Dead Sea Scrolls whisper of a lost book of Og, a text that claims he lived 3,000 years, spanning the flood, Babel, and the days of Moses. Some say Og swam through floodwaters, sustained by supernatural strength, like a titan refusing to die, a living rebellion against divine judgment. Others believe he was born after the flood, the son of a fallen angel and a woman, a hybrid of heaven's rebellion and human flesh. By Moses' time, Og ruled Bashan, a land of cedar forests, fertile valleys, and fortified cities. Yet behind the beauty lay corruption and terror. Genesis 14 tells of kings warring against the Rephaim in the valley of Ashtaroth. Long before Israel, giants like Og were already resisting God's plan. Og's name carried across cultures. In Islamic tradition, he was known as a giant nearly 13 feet tall, his presence etched in the Quran itself. But the Bible is clear, Og's size was legendary. His bed alone became a symbol, an artifact proving the terror Israel faced. And when Moses and Israel stood before Og, God spoke clearly, "Do not fear him, for I have delivered him into your hand." Og rose from his fortress, his armies vast, his stature towering. To Israel, he looked like a living mountain of flesh, a terror made real. The battle was more than flesh against flesh. It was a struggle between the last of the giants and the God who had declared his end. The Lord's command was clear, "Do not fear." Against a being who had lived for millennia, heaven itself was Israel's weapon. Og's shadow stretched across the battlefield. His voice thundered like storm winds, shaking hearts before the clash of swords. But courage came not from strength. It came from God's presence, turning trembling shepherds into warriors of destiny. The armies collided. Dust and blood filled the air. Og's blows crushed men like twigs, yet Israel advanced with unshaken resolve. Ancient texts suggest Og was slain not by Moses' staff, but by Joshua's spear. A strike ordained to pierce a lineage cursed by heaven, the giant fell. His body crashed like a collapsing mountain. Bashan trembled as the last of the Rephaim breathed his final breath. With Og's death, Israel claimed Bashan, a land of oaks and fertile soil. What once was a throne of giants became pasture for God's people. But Og's shadow did not vanish. His name echoed in literature and prophecy, even finding life in Milton's Paradise Lost. Some claimed Og was not just a king, but a relic of pre-flood corruption, a living testimony of rebellion that refused to die. Even in death, his memory haunted Israel. Prophets spoke of Bashan's oaks, its mighty cattle, and its dark history. Bashan's cities became Israelite strongholds. Golan was declared a city of refuge, transforming terror into justice. Yet traditions whisper Og lived for thousands of years, wandering from Noah's flood to Moses' conquest, almost immortal, almost unkillable. Legends even say Og clung to Noah's Ark, surviving judgment by the mercy of man, not God, a survival that cursed him forever. Some apocryphal tales whisper Og was born of a fallen angel's union, a hybrid cursed from the start, bound to resist God's plan. Others claim he built a titanic ark of his own, a vessel of giants, drifting across divine wrath. But God erased it, leaving only him. Whether survivor or hybrid, Og's fate was sealed. He was the last of his kind, a giant whose very breath defied heaven. The Israelites remembered his bed, his fortress, his fall, a story passed through generations as proof of God's victory. Bashan itself became symbolic. Once land of giants, now land of promise. Proof that no throne can stand against the Almighty, yet echoes of the Rephaim remained. Some saw giants even after Og, shadows of his lineage haunting Canaan. The prophets compared Bashan's strength to wild bulls. Even in poetry, Og's name became a symbol of arrogance brought low. To later generations, Og's story warned that power without God is doomed. Giants may rise, but the Almighty always writes their fall. Og's memory spread across nations. His legend passed into Jewish, Christian, and Islamic tradition alike, too great to erase. Some rabbinic tales even claim Og lived since the days of Adam, a witness to ages, a relic no world could contain. But the Bible is clear. His end came in Edrei. Struck down before Israel, his kingdom shattered, his shadow ended. Og's bed became a legend, preserved as a silent testimony of a terror overcome by faith, not by fear. With his fall, the last of the giants was gone, an entire age buried, shadows broken by the light of divine promise. The story of Og reminds us, no enemy is too great when God declares victory. Giants fall, his promises endure. Og, king of Bashan, the last of the giants. His fall is not just history, it is prophecy. No matter how high the throne, God alone reigns. If this story shook your soul, don't leave without subscribing, and tell us your thoughts in the comments below.